Hi guys, welcome. So in today's tutorial we're going to learn how to use Swift and UI table views to display data, and we're going to jump right into this in a minute, but before that let's take a look at what this final project is going to look like. So I have this implemented before in a slightly different way, and we'll go over how that's a little different. But let's just look at what we're trying to make here. We're trying to make a simple table view that has images, and the topic for today can be food, so we'll just have images of food in here and you can scroll through them all nice like that. So pretty basic, but let's go over how we can do something like that. So first off, for those of you wondering how to do all this with a collection view, the process is really similar. You can go ahead and look it up online, but a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing with table views is going to apply to collection views as well. So if you pick up how to use table views pretty well, then you should be good to go for collection views as well. Okay, so to start off, what we'll do is we'll go to File, New Project, and we'll call this application Food Table View Demo, and we can place it in wherever we want. I'll place it into this folder right here, and let's go to our storyboard first. So we'll see in our storyboard we have one view controller already here. Let's go ahead and make that iPhone 4-inch just so that we have some space. We're not going to be doing too much auto layout in this tutorial, so don't worry too much about that. We'll go down here and type in table view, and we'll drag in a table view into our UI view controller, and we'll make it fill the view controller, and we'll add some quick constraints. So we'll just say add missing constraints. Awesome, so now we have a table view in this UI view controller, but you'll see down here that there's also an option for a table view controller object instead of a table view. And let's just go over how that differs real quick. So the previous version of this project that I had implemented was using a UI table view controller. And the code that we're going to have for a UI view controller with a UI table view object in it is going to be pretty similar. However, the difference really is that UI view controllers with UI table views in them are more customizable. So if you want to add like a bunch of more objects, it's easy. But you use a UI table view controller usually when you know that basically you just want the whole screen to be a UI table view. And the advantages to that is that a lot of the code comes inbuilt. It's a lot faster to code that way. But a lot of the times, developers just like to use a UI table view placed inside a UI view controller because it's a lot more customizable. So let's go back to our project right here. We're doing it with a UI view controller and a UI table view in it. So let's drag a table view cell into the table view, and you'll see here it says prototype cells. Now make sure that the cell is selected and go to the right, and you'll see that there's a slot for a reuse identifier here. So let's give this a reuse identifier, and we'll just call it food cell. And basically, what this reuse identifier is used for is exactly what it sounds like, for identifying the cell. So sometimes you'll have multiple types of cells in a table view. You'll have many table views and etc. And basically, whenever you want to access this type of cell in particular from your code, that's going to help you. This is sort of like a unique identifier for that, if that makes sense. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and click the view controller and select that. And we'll go here and we'll see that it's already a class of view controller. Alright, so that view controller.swift file is right here. Awesome. So since we're using a UI table view in this file, or in this view controller, we'll go to our view controller.swift file, and over here we'll make it a delegate of UI table view. So UI table view delegate, and we'll also make sure that we include UI table view data source. Alright, so those are the two things that we need to edit up here. Cool, so next thing that we want to do is we'll split screen, and we want to make a referencing outlet for this table view so that we can access it and change it and put any information that we want in there. So first thing that we need to do is we'll select the table view, we'll control drag right here, right below this class view controller line, and we can call it food table view. Awesome, so there's a referencing outlet. That means basically we can access the table view and modify its data. Okay, so here's what we need to do next. Next, we want to go in here in our view to load method, and the view to load function is basically if you've done any Java, it's like your public static void main, right? So it's basically the function that's called when the view is loaded. So when this view controller is loaded right here. So what we want to do now is right in here we can type food tableview dot delegate equals self, then food tableview dot data source equals self, and then food tableview dot register class for cell reuse identifier. So we'll say the type of class that we're registering. We will get to that later. Right now we can just type UI tableview cell dot self, and we'll come back to this. We're going to change that. I'm just inputting that right there as a placeholder, and we'll now find the reuse identifier that we had earlier. We called it food cell, so we can put that right there. Awesome. Okay. So, and it should be giving us a few errors here because we haven't implemented the delegate methods. So let's go ahead and put some of those in. And these should autofill right in if you've done this properly, if you set up the delegate and data source correctly. So we'll go down here and we'll basically just type number of sections in table view. So that's one of the first delegate methods that we need. Then we'll type in table view, and we'll notice all of these methods come up. And the one that we want in this case is, let's see, it should be right here. So number of rows in section, and then we want one of the most important ones, self for row at index path. And let's go over what each of these does real quick. So number of sections in table view, a lot of the times you can split up table views into multiple sections, so this just dictates how many sections you have. We're just going to return one because we're going to have one section. Now number of rows in section, this is going to be the number of rows that we have in the table view. And a lot of the times when you're using dynamic data and you're getting data from a database, this will be the count of some array that you've populated using a query. But in this case, let's say we just have 7 images that we want to display in 7 different cells. So we can just return 7 here because we know the amount of rows that we want. So perhaps one of the most important methods now here is the self for row at index path method, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. First, what we want to do is we want to go back, and over here we want to think about what our cell is going to look like. So if we go and run this application again, we basically want one image in each cell that populates the entire cell, right? So let's go back, and what we need to do now is we need to take an image view and we need to drag it in here. First, let's resize the cell a little bit so that there's a little more room. So now we can take this image view and we can place it in the cell, and we can basically just make sure it all fits real nice. And awesome. So now it's centered vertically and horizontally, and it fills the entire area of the cell. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and add missing constraints as well real quick. And now what we want to do is, since we have different objects within these UI table view cells, right? So we have a table view cell and we put an image view in it. Anytime we want another type of object in a cell other than a label, then we need to create a custom class for that cell. Now sometimes you'll just want one label on the cell, right? In that case, you don't need to do this, but a lot of times you want a custom cell. In which case you might have multiple labels, or you might have a label formatted differently, or you might have image views in this case. Then you do want to create a custom cell. So let's go about doing that. So first, what we want to do is we want to say file, new file, and we'll make sure it's iOS source Cocoa Touch class, and it'll be a subclass of UI table view cell, right? And we can call this food table view cell, and we'll go ahead and save this right in. And awesome. Now next thing that we want to do is we want to split screen again, and we'll go to our recent files and we'll go to the food table view cell file. And now basically we want to make sure that these two are connected, right? A lot of the times what we want to make sure in Xcode is that our storyboard objects, whether they're view controllers or image views or cells, are connected to the class that we want them to conform to. So first thing that we want to do is we want to go here and try and select the cell, and it's not letting me for a little bit, so I'm just going to move this up a little bit, and I'm going to select the cell, and I'm going to click this button right here. So just like earlier, we made our view controller a subclass, our view controller have class view controller, and there's view controller.swift here. Just like we connected this view controller to this code file, we're going to connect this cell to this code file now. So can you guess what we want to do? That's right. So we basically want to go here, and we want to say food table view cell, and it should autofill right in. Awesome. And now we can drag this back, and basically now this cell, or all these cells, are connected to these to this class. So next thing that we want to do is, just like our table view was in our view controller and we made a referencing outlet to access its data, similarly we want to do that for our image view and our cell. So we're going to control drag right up here, and we'll call this food image view. Let's say that. And now there's a referencing outlet for that image view, so now we can access its data and change its data basically. So we can now go back to our viewcontroller.swift file, and before moving forward, what we can do is over here we can replace this with food table view cell, not self. Awesome. So next thing that we want to do is we want to get all of the images that we need for this project. So I just found some images of various food items off Pixabay, so that they're copyright free and stuff. So I have them saved. Go ahead and take some time, find some images that you like. I'm going to go ahead and just copy these images, and I will drag them into assets.xcassettes in Xcode, and you'll see now all of these images are here. Awesome. So now what we want to do is we want to remember bread, bun, cake, food 1, food 2, food 3, salmon, and snack, and we want to be able to access those later, right? So at the top here, what we can do is we can create an array of images. So we can say var food images equals, and then we can have this array UI image, and we'll construct that UI image out of a file, and we'll need the names for those. Alright, so for the first one, and I'm just going to open this up in another window so I can swap easily, but we basically want bread, bun, and cake, right? So for the first one it'll be bread. That's the name of the image file in our assets.xcassettes. Then we want another one that's going to be bun, and then another one that's going to say cake, then we have food 1, food 2, food 3, food 1, food 2, food 3, and then salmon and snack. So salmon and snack. Awesome. So now I have this array of UI images, and these are basically the images that we've saved into our assets.xcassettes. And the next thing that I need to do is I can go down here, and just to make sure that this is the right amount of images. Earlier I think I said there were 7. There's actually 8. So we can just say return food images dot count. So it'll just return the count of this food images array. So basically what that means is that the number of rows in each section of this table view will be the count or the length of this array right here. And we already know that there's one section, so basically the number of rows in the table view will be the length of this array. So okay, next thing that we want to do is go into our self-erode index path method, and before we start typing here, let's just get an idea of what this does. This method is basically where you take a cell from the table view and you populate it with all the data and customize it however you need, and then you return it. And when you return it, then it'll show up in the table view to the user. So basically all the cell customization and all the data populating and all that stuff is going on in here. It's a really important method. So first thing that we need to do is we can say let cell equal food table view dot dq reusable cell with identifier for and we'll say that identifier will be food cell, just like we did in our storyboard earlier, and index path will just be index path this variable right here, which basically just gives us an idea of, you know, the current cell that we're dequeuing, what row number is that in our table view. Okay, and now what this will do is this will give us a cell, and we can return that cell at the very end of the method. And in between these two lines right here, that's where we're going to customize the cell. Alright, now if we look at this food table view cell, we'll see that it has a food image view property that we want to modify, or food image view object that we want to modify. So if we do cell.foodImageView, we'll notice it doesn't appear, right? And the reason for that is the code right now, or the compiler doesn't really know that we have a cell of type food table view cell. So what do we need to do? We need to typecast it. So to typecast, all we'll do is we're dequeuing the cell from the food table view as a food table view cell, which is this cell that we've defined right here. And that cell we know has this UI image view referencing outlet. So this food image view right here. So what we can say here now is that cell.foodImageView.image. So the image view's image will be basically the value of the image, or basically the image in this array corresponding to the current row. So how do we get that? All we need to do is we say food images, which is our array, and then we need to get an image from using a certain index, right? That index will be indexPath.row. So basically what this is saying, like, let's say this is the second row, so then we'll basically get 0, 1, 2, the third row, and we'll get 0, 1, 2, and that third row will basically be an image of a cake that we have over here. And it looks like I made a mistake. I lied to you guys. Sorry about that. So over here we don't actually want this line because we're already registering the class by basically doing that in the storyboard. So over here what we already did was we went into this cell and we specified both the reuse identifier and the class right here. So reuse identifier and the class. So we don't actually need that line of code there. All I did here is basically I just took out food table view.register class, and we can get rid of that. And apart from that, that's pretty much it for this demo in terms of the basic methods. Let's give it a try and see if it runs though before moving on. Okay, so it is working, but it looks like some of these images are a little stretched, so why don't we fix that? And the way that we want to go about doing that is all we need to do is we need to say cell.foodImageView.contentMode equals dot, and then options will pop up, and we'll say scale aspect fill. And basically what you should understand from this is that in the self-erode index path method, you can basically modify a lot of things about the cell and just customize how it appears and what it does and etc. So now if we take a look, now they don't look so stretched. Okay, cool. So we have this basic functionality implemented. We have a basic UI table view and a view controller, and that's all working. Now what we want to do is figure out how we can select a cell and have something be called according to that. So basically what I'm saying is I want to go over a really important method that's used with table views and collection views. So let's go over it real quick. Basically if you start typing in Tableview right here, you'll see a bunch of these delegate methods, and the one that I'm concerned about right now is did select row index path. So basically, this method is called as soon as a row in the table view is selected. It's pretty straightforward, right? So for right now, all we're going to do with this method is we're going to print something. We're going to say print row selected is, and then we can print the row number. So that'll be index path.row. Okay, so oh, it looks like it doesn't like that. Let me make a string out of that. Awesome. Okay, so let's give this a try now. And if I click, alright, now we're seeing it being logged to the console. So whichever row I tap, it'll print out the row number, and the last one is 7 right here. Awesome, so that is all working. So basically what this is usually useful for is, let's say you tap a cell and you want to get a more detailed view of that, or let's say you want to just go to a different view controller. So what you would do in that case is you would perform that operation right here. So let's say you wanted to make a segue based off of clicking a certain cell. So then you would just say in here self.perform segue with identifier, and you'd be taken to the view controller accordingly. So these are basically all of the most important methods for table views. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial, and see you next time.